Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lunch for the Soul. I'm Melissa Wilson here at our Fox 26 studios, and so happy to welcome you here today. I am thrilled to introduce you to a guest who's making a remarkable difference right here in our own community, day in and day out, as the executive director of the Christ Clinic in West Houston. So, without further ado, let's get to Laura Mounts. Welcome. Thanks for being here, Laura. I'm so happy to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I loved my tour of the Christ Clinic. It is so special from the moment you walk in the door. It is incredible. For someone who's never heard of that before, talk to me about this nonprofit.
Sure. Yeah. So we're a medical clinic, primary care. We have about 10 different specialty areas. We have a pharmacy. We do all kinds of things, but we do it through volunteers with the purpose of serving people that are uninsured or underinsured and low income.
Even many of the doctors are volunteers, right?
All of our doctors are volunteers.
Them are.
Yes.
All of them come out of the goodness of their heart to make a difference for patients who wouldn't otherwise get any medical care. Yeah. And it looked like you were very busy the day that I was there. So people are really taking advantage of this.
Oh, yeah. We have thousands of patients on our active panel, around 5,000, 6,000.
And you've been around a minute too, right?
We have 25 years.
25 years of making a difference. My whole time I've been in Houston, you've been over there. Just everyone's been working hard, making a difference for so many people. I love, like I said, the second you walk in, you see the lion and the lamb on the wall with a prayer room. That is so special. Do people take advantage of that? I mean, I feel like a lot of times people might come in a medical crisis and need that.
Oh, absolutely. So the prayer room that's in our lobby that you mentioned is newer. In our previous locations, we didn't have anything like that. And prayer was still always a key part of what is offered to patients. Not everybody wants it, and that's okay. But the ones that do, we're happy to provide it. We actually surveyed our patients, this is not something we had done before, just because we were going to be applying for a grant or exploring applying for a grant that was really faith-based. And prior to that, most of our funding was really medical. And when we were looking into this faith-based grant, it made us curious about our baseline, like how do you measure salvation and the impact that you're making from a faith perspective in people's lives. We can measure the health outcomes. We've got that part down, but we hadn't done any kind of measurements for faith. And so we ended up sending out a survey to our patients, and we were blown away by the results. First of all, a lot of people responded, which is not super normal, and pretty quickly. And about 30% of our patients said that they were prayed for at Christ Clinic. But about 80% said that they wanted to be, which means that we still missed a lot of opportunities, which is part of the reason why we added a prayer room.
Oh, I love that.
But the number that really blew us away was we asked the question, and this was not like a foolproof approved study or anything. We just wrote it, right? But we asked the question, did your interaction at Christ Clinic lead you to Jesus, to dedicating your life to Jesus? And 33% said yes.
Wow.
I know. That's wild,
That
right?
is incredible.
Yeah.
So maybe they had just never had the opportunity before to know much, but they were there. They felt loved. They felt like these Christians are opening up their doors to help them, either at an affordable price or free. That's huge.
Yeah, it's funny. I was reading Corinthians this morning, and it stood out to me how important it is for one person to sow the seed and another to water it, right? And so I think that when they come to Christ Clinic, I'm sure they've been around Christians before, right? And I'm sure that they had heard of Jesus before coming to Christ Clinic. But then they come to Christ Clinic, and they're frequently in one of the worst places they've ever been in their life, and they feel scared and desperate and weak, and it's in that weakness where God gets to really shine and show up in a way that only he can. And I think then they're just surrounded with all these people that love Jesus, and even if we're not talking about it, they just feel it, right? I mean, you were there. I feel like you can just feel the Holy Spirit there. It's an amazing place to get to work.
Do. Even in the people that you work with. I mean, the colleagues there. I got to meet the pharmacist, and I remember seeing a plaque. I mean, this isn't just any medical care either. I remember seeing an award-winning plaque on your pharmacy.
Yes, yeah.
that you're like one of the top pharmacy in Katy. It's
yeah,
incredible.
we were best of Katy for our pharmacy, got first place.
Well,
and
congratulations.
Then, thank you. And then we get awards every year from the American Heart Association, and Diabetes Association for our blood pressure control and our diabetes control. So we do really excellent medical care, but it's the other parts that are harder to measure that I think make the biggest difference.
Sure. And these people, what would happen if you weren't there? They wouldn't have access to health care, would they?
No, they wouldn't. No, it's, I mean, a lot of our patients have never had access to primary care. You can, if you've always been here or always using a medical system, then there's a terminology that comes with it that you understand, right? But so many of our patients, we'll write them refills, like a prescription with refills, and they don't understand what refills
because
are.
They never had that opportunity before.
No, yeah. So there's a lot of education involved too, just because they've not been part of a system before.
Who qualifies to be able to go get health care there? Because it is state of the art. Your clinic is so lovely, and I was so impressed with it. I mean, this is quality care. Who can go?
So our target is patients that are at 200% of the federal poverty level or less and uninsured or underinsured. 200% is, I don't know the exact number for this year, but I think it's around $55,000 for a family of 4, which is not a lot of money, right? And then we measure underinsured by having an annual deductible of 5% of your annual income or higher. Right. So if your deductible is so high that it really prevents you from accessing primary care, then you're not going to be able to use it. And we need to still be able to do preventative things or chronic disease management for those patients.
And this is so huge because otherwise these people would have medical bills racking up that they would probably never be able to pay, right? And that adds stress, and financial stress can lead to more health problems. I mean, it's just this ongoing crisis that you're relieving them of.
Yeah, absolutely. They say that disease or a major illness a health issue is one of the primary reasons for bankruptcy in the United States.
Well, you shared a story with me while I was here at the clinic. Are you able to share that here as well?
Yeah, sure.
Because it touched my heart so much. I think it gives people a really good idea that there is this higher power that's in charge of a lot more than sometimes we realize. And both my videographer and I were just in awe of this. So take it away.
Yeah, so it's actually one of my favorite miracle stories. We, at Christ Clinic, we are blessed with the opportunity to see God work a lot. But then there's always some stories that just really move you, even when you've been seeing him work a lot, you know? And so this was years ago. We were at 2 locations prior to this one, very small space in a shopping center. I think we had like 1,800 square feet. So it was like we were maxed out in that space. And we had a conference table, but it was just kind of like in this little room off the hallway where everybody used it. We used it for lunch. We used it for everything, right? Well, we had somebody stop by the clinic, and it was a mom, and she had a daughter that had passed away shortly before then, a few months before. And her daughter was getting tube feedings, like through her stomach. And so there's a lot of equipment that goes with being able to do that. And she showed up, and she was like, look, I have, like, her van was just full of cases of the nutrition, the food, and the tubing, and the bags, and the flushes, and she said, I have all of this stuff, and I just want to know that my daughter passing meant something to someone. Like, I just want this to go somewhere.
So she wanted to donate it, hoping that you could do something with it.
And when somebody is standing in front of you and that's their story, you'd say yes, for sure. Even if you have no idea what you're going to do with it, which was the case in this situation. But I wanted to be able to honor her in that way, for her to feel like her daughter, that something good came from it.
And I want to say something real quick too, is you weren't able to get her name or her phone number or anything, and we're hoping that by chance, in some godly manner, she will see this to know what ends up happening.
Yeah, that would be
because
incredible.
it takes my breath away of where this story goes. So continue.
Yeah. So at that point, we didn't see a lot of children because most children have insurance. And the formula that she left is really nutrient dense, which is it's a pediatric formula. And so we really had, and all of the feeding tubes were also pediatric. So we really had no idea what we were going to do with it. And all my coworkers and the volunteers were kind of giving me a hard time about it, saying, who took all this stuff? You know, we couldn't use the table. And I was like, I did, I'm sorry. You know, I'll figure out something to do with it. And it was only a few hours later that we got a call from someone at MD Anderson, who at that point we didn't have a very strong relationship with either. Now we do, but this was a long time ago. And it was a caseworker, and they said that they had a patient. It was a man, an adult, that had throat cancer. And so they had to do a procedure, and he wasn't going to be able to eat by mouth for 6 weeks. And so they had put in a G button so that he could do feedings through his stomach. And but he didn't have insurance, and so they had a surgery scheduled to undo what they did, but they needed to be able to get him through that period of time from his discharge, which was supposed to be in the next day or so, until his surgery to correct what they had done. And they said, so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this specific kind of formula. And so I asked, I was like, can you hold on a second? And I went and got one of the cans of formula. And I said, can you tell me again exactly what it is that you're looking for? I'm like, well, you know, I know that it's a long shot because it's a pediatric formula, but this is what we need. It's really nutrient dense, and since he's going to be on chemotherapy, he needs a lot of vitamins in the nutrition. And it was the exact food that he needed, the exact formula that he needed. And so I asked how many exactly he needed, because we didn't have a lot, you know, because it was going to be like 6 weeks. And so we counted up, even to the time of his surgery, how many feeds he would need that day for discharge, up in all 6 weeks, up until he needed, like, I think a morning and a lunch prior to his procedure. And we had the exact amount of cans of formula, the exact amount of flushes, the exact amount of bags, the exact amount of tubes, for it to have everything he needed
within a few hours of it being delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just unheard of. I mean, it's just that is a miracle within itself.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you see stuff like that all the time,
Yeah.
including the incredible building you're in right now.
Yes.
So I just can't believe how state of the art and beautiful it is, and no white walls that scare people and feel cold, right? I mean, it's just so warm and lovely. So talk about how that came about. It's just like somebody's always there trying to help out.
Yes, that's how it goes.
Always
right?
providing.
I like to say that God, I think, you know, there's always a personal journey that's happening at the same time as our professional ones, you know, and I think I've learned, the older I get, how much I struggle with control, wanting to control things. And I think part of this story and what we've been walking through has been growth for me, and God just reminding me that I'm not really running things, right? I'm not really running things. It's his ministry, not mine. And I'm just supposed to be obedient. And so we, coming out of COVID, we're going through one of the hardest financial times that we have ever gone through in the 25 years that we've existed. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to work ourselves out of this hole that we were in. Part of it was due to foundation shortages, and part of it was just due to decreased patient contributions.
And now we take a look at how far you've come. I mean, this is current day and just state of the art. There's your pharmacist that I got to talk to, but back then it didn't look anything like this.
No. Yeah, no, it did not look like.
And the rooms are so big. It's hard to tell through video, but the rooms are so spacious and so nice and just incredible.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. It's more than we ever dreamed, honestly, that we would have. We were in about a third of this space, and it used to be an OBGYN office, so it was like pink Formica countertops and cabinets, and we thought that was a huge blessing. But anyway, so we were struggling financially, and our lease was coming to an end, and one of our employees was at a food drive, and he was partnered up with a pastor. And the pastor asked him if he had met the people at this building is called the Katy Gardens, and there's a co-working space at the bottom. So he asked if we had met the people that own that space. And my coworker said, no, we haven't. And he was like, well, there's similar hearts, and you really need to meet them. And so he came over, his family came over, and his daughters, who do a lot of mission work. And God had put it on their heart a while before to get more active in medical ministry. And we were only about 6 weeks from our lease coming to an end and still trying to negotiate with not great books and no money, which does not put you in a very good position to negotiate for anything. And they said, we want you to come here. It was funny because they don't really remember us asking. I don't think we did. And I don't really remember them formally asking. It just started moving. It just started happening. Yes. And so they did the entire build out in, it was like 4 weeks and through the holidays, and which that was miraculous, just being able to get all of the supplies and they covered the cost of our build out, and they changed our rent structure so that it's based off of our cash inflows. And that's another huge blessing, so that when we are financially hurting, then we get a break on rent. And when we're really blessed, they are blessed.
That is incredible.
And yeah, it's just been, the whole thing's been so beautiful.
Everything lined up so perfectly for it to flourish and to do what it's doing, which is changing lives.
Yeah.
What is the feeling that you sense from people and their appreciation of it? Obviously, you talked about the surveys, but when you're there and you are educated as a registered nurse, so you're an RN by trade, even though now you're on the administration side of it, but I'm sure that medical side of you sees the difference it's making and feels that difference it's making.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, grateful is the word that comes to mind more than anything. Our patient population, they're just so grateful and so humble, and so filled with joy after they're helped or while they're there. Just the fact that they're accepted, and with love and respect and dignity, they just immediately, you can see the joy in them, and they're happy for the smallest things. And our volunteers are grateful to be there and to be able to experience patient care in that way, because you don't get to always experience it like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Speaking of patient care, tell me a little bit about what you're able to do to help patients. What does a typical day look like, and all kinds of medical problems, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, on a given day, I mean, we could see as many as 100 patients. And we do everything primary care. So anything you would get at your primary care doctor, we do that. So like chronic disease management, preventative care, things like that. We also operate a lot like an urgent care. So about half of our appointments each day are walk-ins, and it can even be new patient walk-ins. And that's more for acute kinds of things, so like upper respiratory infection or flu or cough or something like that. Or like I ran out of my insulin and now my blood sugar is getting high. And then we have about 10 different specialty areas. So we see some patients that are really sick, and we do a lot of wound care, patients that are on wound vacs. We have a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, physical therapist, podiatrist. We have a bunch of different specialty areas. And we also have a Class A pharmacy. So sometimes patients come to us just because their medication is unaffordable for them. They may not necessarily need to be our patient, but we can still offer them low-cost medications. And then we also do a lot of education for our patients, a lot of like self-education to really empower our patients to be able to manage their own disease processes easier.
Oh, it's such a blessing, all those things. What about where they live? So obviously you're based in Katy. Can people from other surrounding areas come? It doesn't just have to be a Katy resident?
No, it doesn't. So we don't have any geographic restrictions. Definitely most of our patient population comes from the Houston area, but we do get some patients that come from outside of the Houston area.
Even outside of Houston,
Oh,
they've
yeah.
heard about it and they see that care,
Like
and it's
Dallas
worth.
and Galveston.
My goodness.
There are other charitable clinics that exist, but
they're
got
drawn to
comfortable-
that one
yes,
for whatever
some
reason. Maybe
yeah.
word of mouth, and
Yeah.
it made a difference in
That's
somebody's
usually
life,
what it
and
is
they
word of
felt
mouth.
like it. What do you love the most about it?
I think it's just it's really changed my life working for Christ Clinic. And I was a Christian before I started working for Christ Clinic, but I never really saw myself in ministry. Honestly, I didn't even see myself in nursing. I also just kind of happened into nursing, really. It was not like a goal of mine in
Not
childhood
a
or
calling,
anything.
so
No,
to speak.
I
It
didn't.
just
I didn't
happened.
know that it was, but now in hindsight, it's very clear that I was called. Like everything in my life and history has really led me to do this job. And so being at Christ Clinic and it really changed my social circle and the people that I'm around every day. And it's crazy what that does for you to just be surrounded by people that love Jesus, even when you're not. It's not like you're talking about it all the time. It's just in interactions. But when you're sad or bummed or angry or frustrated, the kind of feedback you get is different. And it's awesome. You know, I didn't know a lot of wealthy people before I started working at Christ Clinic, but now because of my job, I know a lot of very wealthy
because
people,
they're donors,
right? Because they're donors. And I have learned now that I have a very skewed perspective of what wealth looks like, because all of the wealthy people that I know are very humble and very generous. And they would give whatever to help somebody. And I know that that's not the same reality that a lot of other people have, but I think it's important for people to know that there are a lot of people out there that are really blessed and very wealthy and so generous.
Oh, yeah. Especially, the greater Houston area is unbelievable how it is such a sense of community. It's this massive city that feels more like a small town when people are in crisis, right? It's like there's always people there who come forward and make such a big difference. So again, we talked about where you are in Katy. So tell me more about exactly where you are for someone who might be looking for you.
Okay. So we're inside the Katy Gardens. Well, they can go to our website, which is ChristClinicKaty.org. And we are inside a building called the Katy Gardens. And the address is 1040 Schlipf, which is SCHLIPF Road in Katy.
All right. So that's easy to find. So, it was super easy for us to get there and to be there. And then for people, you said you do have walk-ins, so they don't necessarily have to make that appointment. They can just show up.
They don't. Yeah. And even if somebody makes more than 200% of the federal poverty level, we have other programs for them. So it can operate more like an urgent care, and it's $50 to see a primary care physician, $75 to see a specialist. So we have a lot of families or entrepreneurs, small business owners that maybe haven't gotten to a point in their career where they can get group insurance coverage, but they still really need help with healthcare, and so we're there for that population too.
Oh, that's huge. What happens when somebody gets something more serious like cancer or something that's out of your realm? Are you able to work with different organizations to help them with that, or where do you go from there? Because that gets really tricky.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we have great relationships with most of the hospitals. We have Memorial Hermann and Methodist. We have really great relationships with both of those hospitals and MD Anderson. So if it's depending on the issue and what, how serious it is and what the hospital's specialty is, kind of helps, and where the person lives, all those things kind of help determine where we get patients into. We also have a really good relationship with Harris Health. So if somebody is a Harris County resident and there's a way that we can get them qualified to be able to access surgery or something like that through Harris Health, then that's an option too.
As we start to wrap up here today, what is your best advice for anybody who's struggling right now, whether it's financially, medically? What's your best advice from seeing this day in and day out?
It's probably unconventional advice, but I think my best advice
is the best usually.
Yeah, I think my best advice is to try to find joy in your suffering. I heard once that suffering is a summoning from Jesus, that he's calling you into a deeper relationship with him. And I have found that to be so true in my life. All of the times where I've had moments of really big suffering, and I was widowed at 32 with 2 kids, right? So and have a colorful family history as well, lots of struggles. And so I definitely know what it is to suffer. And when I look back at those moments, every one of those times, God was calling me into something deeper with him. And there was just so much beauty in that trauma. So I would say, know that God is calling you into a deeper relationship with him, and lean into that and ask for help, and go to the people that love Jesus and say, okay, I hear him calling me and I need help with this. Yeah. And, that's your churches, your Christ clinics. There are so many, this is a great city, and there's so many people out there that are willing to help when somebody asks.
It's such beautiful advice. And I agree. Anytime when something traumatic is going on in my life or difficult, And you spend so much more time with the Lord praying through it, and you feel stronger than ever when you come out on the other side. And we all come out on the other side, whether, our prayers were answered or not, because
That's
he
right.
was right there holding our hand. And I think that was just beautiful advice. So
Thank you.
here's to unconventional advice. It was perfect.
Thank
All
you.
right. Laura, thanks for coming in. Thanks for
Thank
all
you.
you're doing with Christ Clinic and sharing the word. It's making such a big difference in so many lives. And I'm so happy to be able to share that through you.
Thank you. Thank you for
All right,
having me.
such a beautiful soul. All right, everyone. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition and last edition, actually, for Lunch for the Soul. It's been an incredible, almost 4-year run. I'm so happy you are here. I hope you've been blessed by this information. God bless you. Thank you for being here and supporting this wonderful cause. Have a beautiful day.